Very delighted to have so many of you, so many who have taken the time, the effort to be here to listen to this lecture. I regard this as a significant act of courtesy. And I hope that by the end of my presentation, all of you would feel, whether you agree with my own conclusions or not, that it was good for you to be here. What an awesome responsibility devolves on my shoulders to answer questions that have been asked for hundreds of years in a relatively short presentation, under 2 hours. There are so many issues. What I grapple with when I come to a subject like this is how do I organize the vast amount of material that I have? How do I find a pivot on which I can hang all the important issues? Well, I've been lecturing on this and debating this matter for a long time. And I was saying earlier that I'm a bit tired of speaking on this subject. But there is always the need, because weak arguments continue to emerge on this issue. Work with me on this presentation. You have to do some work. I might work harder, but all of us have to work. Have to use our minds. So you have to walk with me. My aim is to be easily understood. The first thing we find in the biblical documents is that we have a number of statements that are both positive and negative about the law. That's what we have to admit. And I think that those on both sides must realize that this is not an easy issue. I talk to a lot of my fellow Sabbatarians, and they feel this matter is a matter of butter. They can't understand how Sunday people don't see Sabbath, because it's clear in the Bible, and they can't understand how people are so blind. In fact, many of my fellow Sabbatarians go on to question the integrity of Sunday keepers. I say, boy, them just stifle them conscience. Them dishonest. I do not believe that. Having studied the issue extensively over the years, I believe that there are some arguments which on the surface seem very strongly suggestive of the abolition of the Sabbath. When people say that they can't understand how people can reject the Sabbath, I use that as an indication that they have not thought enough on the issue. I can see how people can. However, I think I have discovered some of the cardinal weaknesses which lead people to reject the continuing validity of the seventh-day Sabbath. So I want to ask you to come on a journey with me as we look at some issues. I want to approach the issue very systematically. So the first thing we must admit is, as the ad, which some of you might have seen, showed, there are a number of texts in the Bible. If you go to Galatians, if you go to Romans, you go to Ephesians. In fact, many Sunday people say it looks like Sabbath keepers don't read Galatians. If they read Galatians, they wouldn't be Sabbath keepers. There are some passages in Romans that if you read them, I say on the surface, it would seem as though the law is abolished. And we have to understand that. Romans 3 and verse 20, for example, says, "For no human being will be justified in his sight by the works of the law." No human being will be justified by the works of the law. It goes on to say, "The righteousness of God has been manifested apart from the law." Romans 3:28, "We hold a man is justified by faith apart from the works of the law." The Bible is replete with those statements, seemingly negative. You go into Galatians, you have a whole ton of them in Galatians. That if you read them, how can you read, for example, Galatians 3 and verse 10 as a Sabbath keeper and not sit up? "All who rely on the works of the law are under a curse. For it is written, curses everyone who does not abide by all the things, and which Sabbath keeper abides by all the things." It is evident that no man is justified before God by the law. Galatians 3 and 11 is very clear. It goes on to say the law does not rest on faith. The law does not rest on faith. Galatians 3:23. Now before faith came, before Christ came, before Calvary, we were locked up. One translation puts it. The RSV puts it milder, confined under the law. But we were locked up under the law, kept under constraint until faith should be released. And now Sabbath keepers want to bring us back under this, the bondage. For the law was our schoolmaster to bring us unto Christ, who has come, for Sabbath keepers' information, over 2,000 years. Therefore, we are justified by faith. Those passages have led our fellow seekers and other Christians to reject the Sabbath. Galatians 2:19. For I through the law died to the law, that I might live unto Christ. All of these passages are there. Galatians 3:21. If a law had been given which could make righteous or make one alive, then righteousness would be indeed by the law. Galatians 4:21. Tell me, you who desire to be under the law, do you hear the law? Galatians 4 says, you have turned back unto the weak and the beggarly elements. You observe days and months. Romans 10 says Christ is the end of the law. Romans 14 says one man esteems one day above another, and a man esteems all days alike. Let every man be fully persuaded in his own mind. You want to keep Sunday, you want to keep Saturday, that's your business. Galatians 2:16. Let therefore no man judge you in respect of a Sabbath. All of those passages are there in the scriptures. Those passages are strong. The temple was rent when Christ was crucified. But equally, you go to Romans 7 and Paul said the law is spiritual. James talks about the perfect law of liberty. So what is happening here? I mean, the same Bible, except we accept the views of Muta Baruch and others that the Bible is a hopeless mass of contradictions. But Romans 2:13, it is not the hearers of the law who are righteous, but the doers of the law who will be justified. What is this? It is the doers of the law who are going to be justified. And then in the same Galatians 3:20, whose first part says, no human will be justified by the works of the law. In the same sentence, without a full stop, it says, since through the law comes the knowledge of sin. That means you can't preach against sin if you do have the law. In the same Romans, not even another book, not even another chapter, in Galatians, same 3 and verse 31, the same, I quoted 28 before, it says, we hold that a man is justified by faith apart from the works of the law. But 31 said, do we then overthrow the law by this faith? No! On the contrary, we establish a law. How can we understand? This thing is confusing. Or is it that we are missing something? Is it that we are missing? Because Paul says the law is spiritual. I would not have known sin except through the law. We hear the commandments are abolished. We hear the commandments are finished. Now, some try to say, well, when you read about commandments in the New Testament, it's commandments of Jesus. It's the Son. It's the Son